Hi, welcome to another live episode of GeekOutdoors.com. As always, let me go ahead and get this set up really quick and we can actually start the show. So this week is some pretty monumental news, and it'll be the first piece of news that we're going to talk about. And I'm really excited about this because it leads to a lot of different things happening in our world. Let me go ahead and try that again. Okay, so we got this here, right? Okay, it seems like every single episode, it seems we keep getting closer and closer to a sci-fi movie in the real world. And so let me take this out. Hey, good morning, Lance. Thanks for joining. So let me see. All right. And so if you didn't see by the title, we're going to talk about, as normal, three main subjects. The first being the successful launch of the SpaceX Falcon Heavy, which is really exciting to me. And I definitely want to talk about at length about that. And then secondly, I'm going to be talking about Amazon Whole Foods and some of the things that I normally talk about Amazon, it's actually happening. And then finally, we're going to be talking about KDE Plasma Mobile, and so how you could actually test it out now. Okay, so the first bit of news is the successful launch of the SpaceX Falcon Heavy. This is actually currently the most powerful rocket ever built, and obviously it is created by Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, and it's important for many reasons, and I do definitely want to get into detail on that because space travel, interstellar travel is something that I think a lot of geeks have loved. It's just really think about sci-fi movies, books, and everything that they've talked about. This is actually where we're heading, and so by Elon Musk's company being able to do this successfully, it shows that we are getting one step closer to truly having interstellar travel, colonization, and there's so many things. And so let me just briefly run down the bit of news for people who are not familiar with what happened. And so on February 6th in Cape Canaveral, Florida, the SpaceX Falcon 9 Heavy rocket was actually launched successfully. Okay, and this is currently the world's most powerful rocket. Let me see what it says here. So it is actually 64 metric tons, and the amount of force, the amount of force is more powerful than 737 jetliners. That's absolutely amazing. Okay, and so it actually has 27 Merlin engines with 9 engine cores. They produce more than 5 million pounds of thrust, and so that is absolutely insane. And I think that was the most powerful one in terms of delivering a payload into orbit prior to the Saturn V moon rocket, which was last flown in 1973. Okay, and also what's really important within that Falcon Heavy is it has what's called the Dragon, the Dragon spacecraft that's in there, which is actually 3 separate things. It could be 3 different configurations, okay? And so one is it could actually be used just to carry cargo, and I'll explain to you why that's important. Another one it could be used is to actually facilitate crew, so you could have a small crew in this little Dragon spacecraft. And then finally, you could also have a Dragon Labs, so for scientists and so forth to conduct experiments within this little tiny spacecraft. And the reason why all of these things are so important, let's first get into the whole fact of this is making interstellar travel more economical, okay? Because SpaceX is not the only company trying to do this, okay? There is Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. And then there's also Virgin Galactic, which is founded by Richard Branson, okay? And one thing that's consistent through all of this is that they're all entrepreneurs. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. The world is ruled by entrepreneurs. And my favorite entrepreneurs are geeky entrepreneurs. And so you'll see this theme go out through this whole conversation, okay? And so in terms of the scientific point of it, that is huge, okay? And then also with actually in this space-heavy spacecraft was actually a Tesla with a spaceman in it. And so if you actually go to the SpaceX website, you could see all the live, at least when it was actually launched, the whole live footage of the spaceman, of the spacecraft. It's just really awesome, you know. And if you are a fan of spacecrafts, NASA, sci-fi, I think you'd really geek out over it. I mean, I thought that I was actually watching a sci-fi movie whenever I saw this happening and whenever they were interviewing Elon Musk. Okay, and as a matter of fact, it reminded me so much of that movie Contact. Okay, if you haven't seen that, check it out. It has a Matthew McConaughey and Jodie Foster. Really great movie. And so, Lance, you're asking what is the anime? It's Kakegurui. I think I would mention that. I don't know if I said that right. Kakegurui. So it is a new series on Netflix, and it's basically gambling. And so I just started watching it. It's gonna be really interesting. And so as usual, normally with my new movie reviews now, it's actually on my other channel, Go Movies. Okay, and so it's pretty cool so far, you know. And so here are my thoughts on really the impact of this successful SpaceX program, okay, and why this is, I would say, such a huge impact to pretty much where we're heading in the future, okay. And so let's, you know, besides the whole scientific part, okay, let's talk about the practical business reasons why this is important. Why this is important is because it's two things. First, you are able to carry cargo. That's the first thing. Because even SpaceX, they've had like 20 missions where they've actually brought cargo from Earth, obviously, to the International Space Station. So that's important. Because if you remember watching any sci-fi movies, especially something like Alien, you know, I keep going back to Ridley Scott's movie because Ridley Scott really predicted what was going to happen, or even 2001: A Space Odyssey. Cargo is going to be a huge thing, especially if we are going to be doing like interstellar travel and we need to transport goods or services, food, but more important, if you are on other planets, you need to mine resources, okay? Even Blade Runner had a lot of this as well, where they have these off-colony planets. So first and foremost is cargo. They could ship cargo. Second is it could carry people, okay? And besides just space travel, if you think of something like Virgin Galactic, right? With Richard Branson, he wants this to be more of a entertainment type stuff. So instead of you taking a flight to another country, you could take a flight to space. Okay, so that is another portion of the business end of it. Okay, and then another portion of the business end of this is selling rockets. Okay, Elon Musk, he's an entrepreneur. He's definitely a brilliant scientist. He's a physicist, but he's also an extremely brilliant entrepreneur. And so he has the mindset of doing well for civilization, but also doing well for business as well. And so they are pretty much one of the top rocket makers right now. And so they provide these rockets to other people and other governments, you know, or other entities like NASA. Okay, so it's not just for him and his company only. So they will be able to sell these technologies and rockets to many other companies or governments that actually want it. Okay. And then another thing they could sell is obviously their patents and technologies as well. So, you know, if other companies want to use similar technologies, they could license some of these technologies out, okay, or some of the software that they're using. And so there's many ways in which business-wise this makes sense for Elon Musk and all these other companies. Okay, so as I mentioned, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, but there's also other companies like Ariane Space, which is based out of France, and there's also a Russian one called Progress as well. And so there is a lot of other companies vying for this, because in the future when we have more and more interstellar travel, I mean, first it's going to start off with something simple, just go to the moon, colonize the moon, go back and forth. People might want to stay on the moon, or people might want to stay on space stations. Okay, that's the beginning. But then obviously we'll be going to Mars, and then maybe they'll have space travel to the sun. And as the cost goes down, which is pretty amazing, this is an amazing thing that Elon Musk was able to do. For him to actually do the launch, him and his team and his company, it cost $90 million. And although that sounds like a lot, that's actually really cheap when you compare to NASA's prediction. Whenever they finish their space launch system, it's going to cost $1 billion just to do the launch. Whereas with Elon Musk's SpaceX, it's going to cost $1 billion to do the whole trip. So that is a huge savings. And all these other companies that are doing this, they're going to consistently bring the cost down. So then it'd be more affordable for people, normal people, to actually go on in space. Okay, like right now, really the only private citizens that go in space are millionaires and billionaires. Okay, because it's going to cost more normally over, I think, like, if I remember correctly, whenever Ubuntu's founder went into space, Mark Shuttleworth, I think that was like over 20 million, if I remember correctly. And so that's obviously not affordable for the masses. And so maybe in the future, instead of buying a plane ticket, you could buy a space ticket. So that's where we're heading. That's going to be pretty awesome. So, but by that time, we will have like space stations out there. We will be able to travel to the moon and so forth. So there is a huge area there for people to actually not only enjoy space, but also the huge business, and then also for governments as well. There are so many things that they could learn from space, and there are so many new opportunities for them to colonize other planets and claim it as owned by Earth. Okay, so the citizen of Earth, or whatever it might be. So that's where it's heading, and that to me is super duper exciting. I mean, SpaceX, I think 2002 was when it was founded, and and I'm going to talk about this a little bit further, and it was really on the brink of bankruptcy, and so was Elon Musk's other company, Tesla. And so these successes did not come easy, and I'm really excited about this. I'm really curious as to see how they, once they do all these tests, obviously there's going to be more rockets. I'm really interested to see the whole colonization part. Okay, first it's going to be in the moon, because obviously it's closer, but then it's going to be on Mars. Okay, so that's going to be very important, that if it's something that's really far, like in Mars, like they got to get there faster. Okay, and then how do you sustain life on a planet that's so far away? Even if you're shipping cargo, it's going to take a long time. And so I'm really curious about how they would colonize and sustain life there while waiting for these cargo ships to come deliver to them in the future. Okay, unless we figure out how to bend time and space by that point, which I doubt it. So that's going to be a long time from that. And so Blance is saying, okay, it keeps freezing up. Yeah, maybe the stream, Lance. It's really hard. I can't really control my internet service. Zane Wolf, hey Zane Wolf, thanks for joining. Good morning. Lance, I can't wait till they launch the BFR. That'll be a huge rocket. Yeah, I mean, and the one that I was talking about earlier, the one by NASA. Yeah, I don't know if the BFR is that one. I think it is. I can't remember right now. But basically it will be the most powerful rocket, but it'll also be the most expensive. Okay, but I'm hoping with the success of SpaceX, we won't have to spend so much money. I mean, that's the whole goal of it. But I hope it comes a lot sooner. I would love to just like get on, like in my lifetime, to get on one of these ships and just go out into space. Experience that. And then be able to actually afford it. And so that's where we're heading next. And I really feel all these companies, and I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier, the consistent thing through all of them, they're all headed by entrepreneurs. All of them. I mean, obviously these entrepreneurs have to work with various governments, but at the end of the day, the entrepreneurs, as in many other industries, they are the one creating revolutionary things. They are the ones investing in things that will actually change the world. Because if you think about the past, if you think about all the inventions that we have, from the light bulb, from your smartphone, from cars, all of these things, our refrigerators, our computers, they were all done by entrepreneurs. And so this is the next evolution of entrepreneurs, and it's going to be the wealthiest ones. All of these entrepreneurs that are actually doing this, they're all billionaires, multi-billionaires. And so I wouldn't be surprised that Facebook already has kind of got into this, because during one of SpaceX's launches, Facebook actually had some of their satellites in there. Let me see what year that was. Let me see. Well, there was, yeah, there it is, 2016. Whenever SpaceX tried to launch their 5th rocket, it exploded. But within that explosion, there was a Facebook satellite for Africa, okay, so to provide internet services to people in Africa, and that was worth $300 million. And so I wouldn't be surprised on more launch missions. You would see companies like Facebook that they've already done, Google, Apple, Microsoft, they're going to have their stuff in there as well. And who knows, they might get into the space program as well, because obviously that's a huge opportunity for them. And so if these companies could get in early and be known to be a partnership or a provider of space travel, then they're really in the right place. Because if you remember the sci-fi movies like Alien, they didn't just have big corporations. They had mega corporations. So let's talk about Apple. Whenever it reaches $1 trillion in terms of valuation, in the future, that'll be normal. If you look at, like I said, Blade Runner or any of these other movies, these companies are worth trillions upon trillions of dollars. So that's where we're heading. And so that's why these companies, these entrepreneurs are trying to get in early, because it's early, okay? So if they get in early, they will be the standard, they will be the brand when it comes to this. So really exciting stuff. I can't really, it's hard for me to fathom that this stuff is actually happening. Okay, so whenever we actually are able to adapt some of these technologies down to earth, that'd be another awesome thing as well. Because if you know, a lot of our technologies like microwave technology and so forth, that was taken from the space program. So maybe once people start colonizing Mars, or I'm sorry, the moon and so forth, we'll be able to take some of those technologies, which have to be very efficient. They have to be very designed really well, is what I'm saying, because for space travel, right? And so if you could take some of those technologies and apply it down to Earth, then it'll really help a lot of people here on Earth, okay? And so those are my thoughts on the space travel. I was really excited about it when I saw it. I keep thinking of all the sci-fi movies I've ever watched, and I can't wait, so really amazing job by people like Elon Musk and his team to actually bring this out. And so Zane Wolf Alpha said, why do they use magnetic energy? Well, Zane Wolf, I know that you can use magnets to actually produce energy, but then again, this is a really complex thing. I mean, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a scientist, but there's a reason why you need rockets and fuel to have this type of propulsion. We don't have the technologies yet to produce that amount of force, because it takes a lot of force to actually get out of the Earth's atmosphere, okay? Quite a bit. And so until we get to the point where we can learn how to generate, and I know this has been on sci-fi, they talked about it, but I think scientists have been trying to figure out for years, where you could produce atomic energy, kind of like the atomic bomb, when they were able to split that, and they produce insane amount of energy, besides the destruction, of course. So if you're able to capture that amount of energy from atoms, then we won't have this energy problem. And if you look at all the sci-fi movies like Star Trek and all of them, they figured out the energy problem. And so eventually we'll get to that point as well, okay? It's just that we're not there yet, okay? And so let's go ahead and move on to the next bit of news. That one, to me, I'm still like, I still can't believe it though. That's just me. So let's go ahead and get into the second bit of news, which is Amazon and Whole Foods. And I have been talking a lot about Amazon, and I just talked about Jeff Bezos again in this case, because Amazon's doing a lot of big things, okay? And if you remember my last episode, I talked about how Amazon is like a $700 billion company now. Jeff Bezos is currently the wealthiest person in the world. But what I was most excited about was where Amazon is heading, and I really feel it's going to be the groceries and food market. And I did mention that previously, that that's where they're going to head next, and then this week's news, it confirms that. So what Amazon has done is they've actually going to offer delivery of Whole Foods to Prime members, and I think they're rolling that out to a few select cities at this point. Let me see where they're going to go this year. So it's going to have a 2-hour delivery. So that's going to be crazy. So let me see. They are actually debuting this new service in Austin, Dallas, Virginia Beach, and Cincinnati. The delivery is free for orders over $35. And this should be pretty easy because Whole Foods is not cheap. And then if you remember, Amazon actually purchased Whole Foods for about $14 billion. And so this is a huge thing. And it goes into what I said on that last episode, where this is why Amazon bought Whole Foods. Okay, this is why the whole food market, grocery market, this will be the next big thing, in my opinion, besides artificial intelligence. But artificial intelligence has a huge role in this new technologically advanced food delivery service, okay? Because you know, companies like Walmart, they're definitely going to get into this. But this is a huge step because Amazon has already tried this before with their Amazon Fresh program, but unfortunately that did not go really well, and so they had to discontinue that service in a lot of places. And so the biggest challenge is having the food delivered successfully and having it being fresh, okay? Which is kind of funny because Amazon Fresh wasn't really that fresh. And so what Amazon is going to do with Whole Foods, and the reason why they bought Whole Foods, and this is just my opinion, the reason why these other companies buy these other smaller companies is because they already have the actual systems built, okay? They already have the infrastructure, okay? So that means these companies don't have to build it from the ground up. And most importantly, they have the consumers already. They already have the customer base, and they also have the brand that goes with it, okay? So whenever Amazon tried to get into the whole food thing with Amazon Fresh, and even just recently opening up these Amazon Go stores, people have to like think about that. You know, they've never tried Amazon food stuff before, and so there is a learning curve in order for them to get adjusted to it and also trust that this is a place that they can order their food from. Whereas if it's an existing brand that people are familiar with, and that's why I talk so much about brand marketing, it's extremely important. Well, they already know Whole Foods. You know, they already know Walmart. Okay, so Amazon, not being stupid, they knew that. So that's why they bought Whole Foods. And now the next step is they're going to integrate, as I mentioned in the last episode, a lot of their Amazon services and technologies into Whole Foods. And so what you're going to start seeing as, you know, as maybe hopefully by the end of the year, you're actually going to see the cost of food go down for Whole Foods. I know that sounds crazy, okay, but Amazon's approach is not selling you the most expensive thing. What Amazon's approach is selling you things at a lower price, so then they could bring you into their ecosystem so that you could buy more of their products and services for the long term. Okay, that's Amazon's strategy, and it's worked. And then later on, by the time they like dominate so many markets, then they can increase their prices and they won't really have people say no, you know, because they're already deep into their ecosystem. You know, all of these companies are trying to do the same thing. You know, just think about Apple. They can overcharge people whatever they want, but since they have the brand, number one, but also the ecosystem there, people will pay for it. And so that's what Amazon's going for here. And I also think it's also going to bring a lot of innovation in not only like, you know, like figuring out what people like in terms of food and delivery, but also in robotics. Okay, because there's a reason why Amazon is opening up all these little satellite buildings to do food delivery with drones. Is because they could get to market faster, but also if they keep going at this pace, which they are and all other companies are, they're going to have some of the most advanced robotics available. You know, I mean, I keep thinking about Terminator, so I'm going to think about Amazon drones as the beginning of these Terminators. So they're not only going to fly around and deliver you food, but they might even attack you if you don't pay. You know, so that is going to be exciting. And let me see. Hey, good morning, Rose. Thanks for joining. And Zane Wolf is saying, if Nikola Tesla was alive, we already be in the future. Well, It's so funny you brought that up, Zane Wolf Afro. I will say one thing, okay, and it goes back to the whole entrepreneurship thing, okay. Tesla was a very brilliant man. He definitely was, all right. But who got credit for electricity, okay, or lights? It wasn't Tesla, who's really the one who created this. It was Thomas Edison, okay. And why did he get credit for it? Well, people knew him. People heard of, Thomas Edison. He was a better entrepreneur and he was a way better marketer. And so, Tesla's name only really became known just like, the last decade now. But because Thomas Edison's an entrepreneur, more people know what he's done. Okay, and so that's the reality of it all. And that's why I always go back to the whole entrepreneurism thing. If you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you created it or not. People are going to remember you or whatever you created, and not actually the inventor of the technologies. Because if you look at Tesla's history, he died poor. He actually went crazy as well. And so, not to take anything away, but if you're ever thinking of doing these things, be sure to patent your technologies. Make sure you own the rights, and make sure you have a business model around it. I think that's where all of us should do if we ever do create something. Make sure that we own it, and so we don't end up being the person who ends up not getting any credit for it and definitely not benefiting from something that you created. Okay, so that's funny that you brought that up. Let me see. Rose, the best thing, keep diversification with product service you buy and support to prevent too much control. That way we keep prices low. Absolutely, Rose. I agree with you 1,000%. So I think what Rose is referring to here is, since a lot of these technologies, services, any products that we buy, you diversify, and I know that sounds like some investing thing, but it's true, and you diversify in the areas that make sense to you, like for me, like for example, if you're, we're on YouTube, right? So I'm not just on YouTube, right? I'm on many other places, I do that by design, I don't do that by accident. And even the products and services that you use every day, you use Google services here, you use Apple services here, you use Amazon services here. Okay, even though it might seem like it's spread out, at least you're not dependent on one platform or one company to provide this to you. Okay, because if you think about like Amazon services, right? If you do everything through Amazon, Amazon could actually restrict your access to things that you purchase. Okay, this has happened before. Take something simple like Amazon Kindle. If they feel like you violated any of their policies, which are constantly changing, they could restrict access to books that you bought before, or even on Audible. Okay, so so really great point there, Rose. Let me see what they're gonna do here. They're gonna be more of a vertical integration, on-demand Whole Foods. We're tied to the Amazon Prime services. Let me see. Oh, and here's another thing that I did mention this on my last episode, where I feel Amazon will be the most powerful technology company in the world. And I also said that there will be a force of not only in video, because I really feel once Amazon Tube or OpenTube, whatever they call it, it will be the #2 video destination behind YouTube. But I also said that Amazon is also going to grow in the ad market. Okay, and the reason I could say these things is because I do these things behind the scenes. And the news is just now catching up to it. So the news here, it says, okay, Amazon's ad business, advertising. Okay, I mentioned this before. I do Amazon ads as well. So I do Google AdWords, I do Facebook ads, and I do Amazon ads. Most people have not heard of that unless you actually sell stuff on Amazon. Okay, and so Amazon's ad business, which includes sponsored ads on Alexa, suggested items on Amazon search pages, and even ad boxes around the internet and other sites, grew 60% last quarter. Okay, faster than Google's or Facebook's. Although they have a lower base of people running ads, you could see where Amazon's heading on this. Okay, and so the business is on track to make as much as $10 billion in revenue by the end of this year, or about 1/4 of Facebook's total revenue in 2017. And so Amazon is coming, and they're coming extremely strong. And so you're going to see more Amazon ads everywhere. That's guaranteed. Like even right now, if you do Amazon ads, let me know if you're familiar with that or you do it. If you do Amazon ads, you'll whenever you buy the ads, you'll have either sponsored ads or product placement ads. Okay, those are the two main types, at least right now. And right now, the cost for Amazon ads is super cheap, like way cheap. Okay, so if you're ever interested, you want to learn about that, you could definitely go to their website, type in Amazon ads. You could go check it out because it's really cheap right now. But Amazon ads, they're making changes, and so it's going to get pretty expensive pretty quick. And so if you're actually in the whole ad platform, if you are in digital marketing, which is what I do, you're going to see all your ad costs go up. If anybody does Facebook ads, they've already seen that right now. Google AdWords is already expensive. It used to be cheap. And so if you are interested in getting into digital marketing, I do have a course that I've used that I recommend, and I will leave that in the description area below. But if you're interested where the industry is heading, this is where it's heading. Okay, it's going to be in order for you to get traffic. Okay, like right now, we're on YouTube, right? Or you're on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, wherever. You're getting traffic for free. Okay, but as time goes by, they're going to reduce the amount of free traffic that they're giving to you. If you've ever been on Facebook, you're probably seeing that they've really deranked Facebook pages now, unless you pay for it through Facebook ads, okay? And even on definitely Google AdWords, it's always been increasing every single year, and every one of them is going to keep increasing. So in the future, if you want attention, you want traffic, you're going to have to spend money on digital marketing. It's like, this is going to be the standard. So if any of you are interested in getting traffic, just know that you're going to have to learn or invest in digital marketing services. SEM, which is search engine marketing, which is Google AdWords, Facebook ads, Amazon ads, Snapchat ads, Twitter ads, Bing ads, okay? That's SEM, but that combined with SEM, search engine marketing, is SEO, okay? So SEO is tied into everything, okay? And primarily for organic search. And so just know that if you are going to get into the whole internet world, you're going to have to learn marketing or pay somebody to do it. Because in the future, they're not going to give you free traffic, okay? Because they have billions of people who are on the internet, and it's not just these US companies, it's all around the world. And so you're going to see more and more Amazon ads coming up in the future. And so, yeah, you're going to see more of their products and services tied together and more marketing. So if you don't like ads now, you're going to hate the future because ads are going to be everywhere, okay? And so, Shatter, good morning, Shatter. Okay, thanks for joining. And so this would be pretty awesome. I mean, once they get this food delivery service in place, and once they automate a lot of things, it's going to make our world even more convenient, but honestly, it's going to make us even lazier. And so that's the part that I'm concerned about. We're going to be lazier, we'll probably get more fatter, I guess. And so let me go to the last piece of news, is KDE Plasma for mobile. Okay, so we have talked about this before. I think Rose was one of the ones who brought it up, where we had the Purism Linux phone, right? And that was funded, and it will be coming out. But one of the interesting things that they were using is they used the KDE Plasma Mobile as one of their desktop front-end choices. They'll also have a GNOME front-end too, if you want to use that windowing system. But just recently, if I'm not mistaken, KDE Plasma Mobile, if you go to their website, you could type in KDE Plasma Mobile. It's actually at plasma/mobile.org. What they've done is they've actually released a neon-based ISO that you can actually download and try. I haven't done this yet, but you could download this mobile ISO and you can run it on a virtual machine, or there's another virtual machine that they say works better on KVM. And so if you have not seen this, it's to me it's pretty beautiful, okay? And we talked about this before, where all these Linux distros, they're heading towards a mobile base, okay? That's where it's heading. And so I'm still with a strong belief that hopefully by the end of this year, the mobile Linux distros will be the norm, okay? Meaning we'll have one distro. Hopefully by the end of the year, maybe it'll be in 2019, we'll have one distro to rule them all, meaning that whenever you go download a distro like Linux Mint, or Ubuntu or whatever, it'll work really well on any size screen. Okay, companies have tried this for a long time, but when I saw this KDE Plasma Mobile, I was really impressed. If you haven't seen it, just think of it this way. Just think about how KDE looks with Plasma, right? And just imagine that on your phone. That's how it looks like. I mean, and if I had to compare it, it looks more like Android, obviously. Okay, if you're looking at it, it has a little arrow at the bottom. It scrolls up, you can see your apps. It has all your normal things that you see, your cameras, your notification. And about the only things, it is in a prototype mode, so things might not work as well. Okay, and I'm going to test it out myself. But at least from the videos and stuff that I saw, it still has like performance issues. You know, like when you click on your settings or you're opening up an app, it takes like a little bit time to open up. You know, there's a little circle, and then your app or program comes up. Okay. And obviously, there's still the whole ecosystem. Now, what's different with the Linux distro mobile phones, like this KDE Plasma Mobile, is the fact that you could actually run full-blown Linux programs on it. And I think even the Purism phone, they mentioned that before. That's the main differentiator between what Android, iOS, and to some extent Microsoft is still doing versus what the Linux world is doing. And I know Android, it has a Linux kernel, but honestly, I really do not consider that a Linux phone, you know, because they're just using the kernel, but all the other stuff they have on top of it, that to me, that's not Linux, okay? It just uses the Linux kernel, okay? Now, with these pure Linux phones, that's going to be awesome, you know? You're going to be able to use the same programs that you have on your computer, and obviously, it's going to take some time to develop mobile versions. Okay, that's still going to be a challenge, but I'm hoping as these developers, they get better at this, and we have more people who actually use the mobile versions of Linux distros, that they will get more data on it to where they could produce a more streamlined approach. Okay, I would love to just have my phone, and you know, other companies have done this before. Android has done it with the Motorola Atrix a long time ago, and Microsoft has done it as well. Samsung is doing it right now, where you know, you would just dock your phone and there's your desktop. Okay, and I think out of all of them, I think Samsung has done the best, in my opinion. You know, when I look at their Galaxy, they have a docking station, right? And then the desktop interface, it looks really clean. Okay, it kind of reminds me of Chrome in a lot of ways, Chrome OS. Okay, and so with the Linux one, what my hope is, if it's truly one Linux distro for everything, then, you know, whenever you have your phone, you bring it home to your desktop, you plug it in, bam, you have a full-blown Linux desktop, you know. And since the phones are now getting so powerful hardware-wise, and since Linux as an OS is still less resource heavy than other full-blown operating systems, then I could easily see where you don't really need, you know, to carry around your computer with you all the time. You know, even right now I could do the majority of things I need to on my phone, but it'd be awesome to just have this one mobile Linux distro that's, in my opinion, it looks pretty beautiful. As a matter of fact, if you actually look at it, it uses Qt based technology, and then just plug it in and there you go. You know, it's gonna be sweet. Okay, and so Lance is okay. Let me see who's that. Oh, Joe Panico. Hey, Joe, thanks for joining. And Joe is saying, as much as I love Linux, I have to disagree, unfortunately. Yes, mobile will be present, but far from scale to one. Yeah, Joe, I mean, we're not there yet. It's just that my hope is that we get there. I mean, eventually we will. I mean, I would love to just have one. You know, even if you were to put the same thing into embedded systems, you know, it would just be really nice. You know, I don't like having to download multiple different versions, and then you got to worry about updates, versioning. You know, the apps that you use here on your mobile device is not compatible with your desktop device. And I know Google is already working on that, and so is Apple. You know, all of them have already been working on that. You know, like for example, Android is going to be merged with Chrome OS. There will be one unified OS. So all these companies are working on it. But I really feel like, you know, if we have it for Linux, which we will, from these communities, these awesome communities who create these Linux distros, I want that option there. And so I think that it will definitely head there. My hope is end of 2018, but I'm thinking realistically, maybe not till 2019. Okay, definitely going to go through some growing pains. Shatter saying back with cup of tea. Yeah, awesome, Shatter. Yeah, I always have my cup of tea as well. Let me see. Joe says, am I the number one optimist when it comes to Linux? I would love to see it dominate. Oh no, Joe. I think, you know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of us who use Linux, we're very optimists when we come to Linux. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't use it, and we also wouldn't recommend it to other people. I'm a huge optimist of Linux. Linux as a desktop operating system. Okay, let me really clearly define that. Or if you want to be specific, Linux GNU or GNU Linux. Okay, that's really what I'm talking about. Because obviously we already know the Linux kernel is used on more places than any other kernel. Okay, I mean we already know that, so it's already dominated a lot of spaces. Okay, but I'm just hoping it keeps getting better, and that as these communities grow, and as we are able to help these communities, that they will be able to produce more awesome things. Okay, I always want that option of having Linux as a desktop operating system available. But I have said this before, in the future that might not be the case. You know, since everything is going online based, we might not have that option in the future. That's unfortunate. That's where I think it's heading. But in the meantime, yeah, definitely I'm a Linux optimist. Let me see. Rose is saying, I will buy the Pearson phone when they start producing them. It's better than buying an Apple $1,000 phone or Samsung phone controlling behaviors. Yeah, Rose, I'm with you right there. That's why I'm hoping the distros will come out sooner, because the Pearson phone, although it's going to be awesome, at the same time, you know, we need other options as well. You know, maybe people might not want to buy a pure Linux phone. Maybe people want to just download the distro and, you know, put it on their existing device. And so I think what Pearson is going to do, my opinion, okay, obviously they're going to release the hardware with the software, but they're also going to release the software freely as well. That's my opinion. I think that's what they're going to do. Okay, and even right now with the KDE Plasma Mobile, you can actually test this out on your mobile phone, and I think they tested out on the Nexus 5. So, you know, that's what I think is going to happen. So I'm definitely, if you want the Pearson phone, definitely supporting the company there. But at the same time, I think they're going to provide this software for any phone. That's my opinion. Okay. Let me see. Where are others? Ubuntu failed on convergence. Yeah, Shatter, they did. And, you know, that's kind of, you know, that makes it challenging, because Ubuntu, as we know, as we talked about, is the most well-funded Linux provider, Linux disk provider by far, them and Red Hat, right? But it's just really challenging. You know, it's really challenging because you have so much competition, and it's not just the technology, and we all know this, okay? If it's just purely based on technology, Apple would not be where it's at, because they're always behind everybody else, right? So there's a lot of other things involved. You need capital. I mean, you need capital. You need money. You know, you need a brand. There's a lot of things involved, and so that's why it's been so difficult for a lot of these Linux communities to actually do this. Okay, because obviously most of them are not big multi-billion-dollar companies. But I think it's getting better. I think at the time that Ubuntu started, they were like thinking way far ahead. And so maybe it was just a timing thing. But my prediction is, I'm pretty sure Mark Shuttleworth and his team, they're going to come back into this. They're going to try this again. That's my opinion. And so, as you know, with the latest release of Ubuntu, it doesn't use the Unity, Unity desktop environment anymore. So I think they'll definitely come back in. Okay. But now there'll be more people involved. Let me see. Hey, 41J, DJ Brooks, thanks for joining. I thought Microsoft was different when it came to the Lumia phones. They should have kept to the software and left the phones to Nokia. Yeah, me too. I agree with you, 41 DJ Brooks, because man, I love Nokia phones. You know, if you're old enough to remember, Nokia, a Finnish company, they've been around a long time. I think Nokia and Motorola, they're probably the oldest phone companies. You know, but obviously they're not the same companies that they are before. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but I used to work for Motorola. There's Motorola right there. I have a lot of other Motorola stuff, but I used to work for them. And so Motorola actually created the first mobile communication devices, because back then in the military, you know, a lot of military, they use Motorola devices, okay? And then that eventually evolved into cell phones, okay? Or back then they were big phones, okay? So Motorola has a huge history, but Nokia, above anyone else, I think whenever Microsoft bought them out, they bought them out for different reasons. I don't think Microsoft really cared about the brand. They really cared more about the patents. You know, you got to remember at that time, Android was just coming up, Apple, iOS, and so everybody, just like this whole space travel program, everybody wants to get in early. And when you get in early, you're going to have lawyers involved. And so they were all trying to buy the patents. I think Microsoft bought Novell, a lot of the patents that were related to Novell as well, if I'm not mistaken. And as you remember, Google purchased Motorola. So they purchased Motorola after I left Motorola, but they purchased them primarily for the patents. Okay, but unfortunately, whenever they did that with Nokia, you know, they didn't care about the phone division anymore. And I think that's why the Nokia pretty much died when it comes to phones. You know, they're still releasing phones right now, but yeah, that's kind of sad in my opinion. You know, so Joe asked, I am so pleased that Linux has come so far where it was a decade ago. Yeah, me too, Joe. I mean, even a few years ago, you know, it's 5 years ago, it's like come really far. And once again, I gotta really give a big shout out and thanks to the entire Linux community, you know, especially the people who make these distros. You know, I've said it every episode when I talk about Linux, if I can, and I'll say it again, if there is a Linux distro community that that you really believe in, that you really get value out of and you want to support, if you can, give them money. If you can't give them money, give your time, okay, or your skills, okay? So then we could keep having all these amazing open source Linux-based tools, okay? And so, Shacher saying, the Mandrake Dick shouted out for his new smartphone privacy OS project named Elo or similar, can't remember the name right now. Shacher says, Microsoft and Nokia John under the Android world. Yeah, you know, Shacher, I'm glad you brought up the privacy OS thing, because one of the big things that Librem 5, the Purism phone, that they actually tout is privacy. And more than anything, and I think this goes directly with people who love using Linux as a desktop operating system, what we have over any of these operating systems is control. Okay, I want to be able to have control not only over my privacy, but also, you know, how my operating system operates, you know, how it's used, and what type of data is collected, you know, how the data is being used, okay? And so, obviously, we don't have 1,000% control, okay, but we have, like, I'd say 95% of control when it comes to a Linux desktop operating system. And so whenever this goes to the mobile, then we'll hopefully still have that same control. And that's what really appeals a lot to me, because I guess, I hate to say this, but I think a lot of people use Linux as a desktop operating system, whether they want to admit it or not. I think we're control freaks. That's my opinion. We like having control, okay? Let me see. DJ Brooks says, yes, I agree with that. Shatter says, do you see reply by... Okay, so he's asking for Joe's advice. I'm not sure what that is. That's on another channel. Okay. Joe, I have not. Okay. Rose says, STL Tom calls external OS is spyware Linux. Oh, yeah. I'm not really sure what y'all are talking about, because as you know, if you watch my channel, I'm not a Linux channel per se. I do love Linux stuff, but I do not watch other Linux channels. I mean, honestly, the only Linux channel that I watch is usually Joe Collins. You know, that's really the only Linux channel that I watch. And so a lot of times when you're having discussions about other Linux channels, I really don't know what you're talking about. And as a matter of fact, I get a lot of my Linux news from you, you know, whenever you're discussing this. So I'm really, thank you for that. A lot of the channels that I watch, and I've mentioned this many times, I watch a lot of business YouTube channels and marketing channels, and content creator channels. So that's the main things that I enjoy. So if you watch the tagline on my channel, I'm a content creator, I'm a marketer, I'm a Linux lover, and I'm a geek. And so most of my time is spent on content creation and marketing. And so if you do talk about these things, I'm not really familiar with it, okay? And so Shots are saying Linux is on the go after 20 years because of RHEL, Red Hat Linux. Yes, Canonical and SUSE Linux, not GNU plus Linux. Need more marketing for desktop world as a product like Windows, Mac. By the way, Mandrake was great. Yeah, Shanta, and I think a lot of the marketing that's being done for Linux and it's through YouTube. That's my personal opinion. If it was not for YouTube, Linux would not be, as a desktop, Linux would not be where it is today. Because before we had YouTube, when I first started using Linux, my first Linux distro that I really used was Ubuntu. And back then, we didn't have YouTube. You know, it's like back in 2000, 1999, 2000, we didn't have YouTube, okay? And so, and even when YouTube came at that time, it was barely at the beginning. And so you really have to thank the people who first created YouTube. And I cannot remember the name of the founders of YouTube. There was 3 guys who actually started YouTube. And then Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who created Google, bought YouTube. Okay, and so you have to thank those people first, because if they did not do that, we would not have YouTube today. And then secondly, we have to definitely thank the people who are creating all this Linux content on YouTube. You know, and so that's where we're getting our marketing. And so, yeah, so it helps a lot if you actually, you know, support the content creators who produce Linux. You know, once again, whether it's through money, whether it's you joining these discussions, whether it's you sharing ideas, so that we can tell more people about Linux as a desktop operating system, or also it'll get them into the whole ecosystem as well. So that's one thing that I definitely will continually market and approach. So 41 JD Brooks saying closest to desktop Linux is Chrome OS and Android, but most consumers do not care as long as it is convenient. Absolutely, absolutely, 41 DJ Brooks. Definitely. It's always about that. It's always about convenience. What can you do for the consumers? Okay. And once again, I go back to the whole brand marketing thing. You know, when people think about Apple, they think about those things. Simplicity, convenience. It's some company and product service that they trust. Okay. So with Linux, it's not there yet. But whenever we make these videos and people watch it, they'll see how easy Linux as a desktop operating system is to use. I mean, obviously, if you download a distro that is more user-friendly, like Linux Mint, okay, then they'll see that they don't have to be a technical guru to actually use these operating systems. And also at the same time, there's a huge community of support. Okay, let me see. 41J people buy products that's convenient and do not care for privacy. Yep, that's true. And so yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead. It's been almost an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and end off this episode because I don't think I have much else to add to this. Because whenever it gets to the whole Linux conversation, I really do try to add as much to the discussion as I can. But as I mentioned earlier, since I do not watch a lot of Linux content, most of the time I really rely on y'all to give me a lot of the Linux information. Okay. Now, in terms of Linux. We'll be doing an episode this week. You know, if you've seen my series, I've just barely started it, where I'm learning how to create a distro. There will be an update to that. I'm learning something new, at least for me. And so look forward to that this week. And I really do appreciate your ideas. But if any of you had any further ideas, and I know a lot of you who watch my channel, you love Linux. And so if you had any other ideas, please share them as well. Like I said, I get a lot of my ideas from you. Okay, like I said, number one, I don't spend a lot of time watching Linux channels. Number two, I don't distro hop at all. You know, I'm pretty much Linux Mint all the time. So if there's any ideas that you could share, that would be great. Okay, and then obviously I make Linux videos every single week as well. And so thanks for the show, Gold. Thank you, Lance, as always, for joining. Rose, sorry, we already have excellent distros for the masses like MX17, Peppermint, Linux Mint to replace Windows. Absolutely, Rose. And yeah, 41 DJ Brooks, yes, people cannot cope with choice anymore. Yes, definitely right, 41 DJ Brooks, because in the whole business world, or even just in general, if you give people too many choices, they won't make a choice. They're confused, okay? And so Joe saying, okay. So first and foremost, thanks, Rose. I want to thank everybody who's on the discussion. I want to thank my regulars, of course, which is now everybody, Lance, Zane Wolf Alpha, Rose, Shatter, and a new person. I don't remember seeing you on here before, Joe Panico. Thank you for joining. And 41 DJ Brooks, I have seen you on the comments. Thank you so much for all of you joining and sharing your knowledge. And as I say, if you ever have any ideas, I would love to have them. Okay, Linux is the main thing that I produce, but if you watch my channel, I produce many other types of content. Okay, so that means I have to come up with a lot of different ideas. Okay, and so as always, for anybody who is currently watching this live right now, I say this on every episode: time is the most valuable asset that we have, and I really appreciate you spending the time here, especially to the people who are sharing in the discussion, giving ideas, but also for all of you watching live, and for any of you who are watching this later on. And so as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to subscribe. And if you did want to support my channel further, you could do that at patreon.com/geekoutdoors. We will see you on another live episode.